One caveat I'm just going to give you all is my Mac is making the most dangerous, peculiar noise. I've got no idea if it's going to make it through the next hour, and I then reboot it to find out. So if I suddenly drop off, somebody else will need to become host. So without further ado, my name is Jonathan Potter. I'm Managing Director here in the UK North Hub for S&S, and I'll be your host for today. So it's very much my pleasure to welcome you all to what I'm sure will be the best 60 minutes of your day. Absolutely no pressure for myself or the team. Now, before we jump into the agenda and we get things moving, I'd appreciate if you just humour me for a shameless plug on S&S for just 30 seconds. So for those of you that are new to us, we're a challenger change and transformation consultancy. We help businesses of varying different scales, size and complexity deliver their most ambitious transformation programs. But what we do differently and what we know is absolutely certain is that we need people to be at the very core of that. Our heritage very much lies in capability and capacity. And as such, we have the ability to scale and deploy teams rapidly to solve a breadth of different transformation challenges. Equally, we support our customers with more detailed, discrete packages of work. So that might range from helping transcribe a business strategy into a tech roadmap, a delivery plan, all the way through to helping customers pivot to new ways of working with our award-winning approach to transformation. So if any of you are interested in finding out more, if any of you are struggling to release value, if you've got capability, capacity challenges, of course, we absolutely would love to be in the frame for a conversation, see how we might be able to help you unblock some of those problems. So sales pitch done, on to the reason that we're here and onto the agenda. We've recently produced over the course of the beginning of this year, 2 orange papers. And orange papers, for us, that those don't know, are our version of a white paper. And those have looked through the lens of different members of the C-suite, particularly the COO and the CEO, to establish what the risks might be with implementing Gen AI. We know this is a huge subject. We know that everybody is going to be grappling with how to get the most benefit and advantage from it. And we'd focus really on being cautious around not trying to run too fast and the damage that could cause. But we then stepped back and thought about, we need to start thinking about what the opportunities might be. So today we very much are looking at those. How do you get it right? What can it bring in terms of competitive advantage? What will it take to get there? All the way through to what that means for your customers, colleagues, and shareholders. I'm absolutely delighted to say our panel are members of our Transformation Advisory Board, a small and beautifully formed group of transformation leaders, founders, and independent consultants who we work with to ensure that we stay in tune with the market and think about the best ways we can serve our communities. I'm therefore thrilled to introduce you to Jane, Rob, Ravi, Neil, and Christoph, who'll be taking the stage shortly to guide you through each segment. So just in advance, a really big thank you to each and every one of you. I know how much time and effort you've put into the planning of this session. They've all got a very tight slot and tight agenda. So they've each got 8 minutes each. So please do get ready to theoretically throw tomatoes at them when they break that deadline. Now, before I hand over the mic, I'd just like to start things off with an interactive poll. Don't worry, we're not going to ask you plenty of questions throughout this. We would like to follow up with a poll as a follow-up to the webinar, and we will have a Q&A across the last 15 minutes of this hour. So in preparation for Jane's section on the evolutionary role of leaders, please could you answer the following question? As AI becomes increasingly integral to the business operations, how do you perceive the need for change in leadership roles within your organization? We'll give you 30 seconds just to respond to that. Emma, if you wouldn't mind letting us know what you think the majority have cast their vote, we'll then get the stage and floor ready for Jane. Everyone close your eyes. Wouldn't be a webinar if it goes slightly wrong.
Sorry, JP, it's my fault trying to unmute myself. We've got 44 out of 50 who've responded. So I think if we give it another 10 seconds or so, we should have everybody.
Okay,
Sorry.
wonderful. My Mac is still going, but it is still whirring for those of you worried about its health.
Okay, right. 10 seconds and I'll close the poll, JP, and you'll have your answers.
Wonderful.
Okay, closing. There you go.
Perfect. So most of you believe either significant or some adjustment to leadership is required. Well, that I think leans us neatly into Jane's section. So I think without further ado, Jane, the floor very much is yours.
Thank you, JP. So good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to share some thoughts with you around the leadership paradigm shift that emergent technology is bringing to bear. No matter what forum I find myself in these days, emergent tech and AI, coupled with the significant opportunity it presents and the challenges that come with it, are always key topics in the room. In my slot here today, I'm going to unpack the shift that leaders will need to make in their thinking around their own leadership approach and style. I'll also consider the skills and attributes that leaders of the future will need in their toolkit, and I'll start to tease out what a new definition for great leadership might start to look like. I shall also consider the anticipated change in the shape of organisations and executive boards. Now, before we step firmly into getting fit for the future, I'd ask that each of you spend a few moments in history with me. I wonder if we could have the next slide, Emma, please. There was just shy of 450 years that passed between the first and third industrial revolutions. But since then, it's been a mere 40 years to get to the fourth industrial revolution, where we find ourselves today. And the fifth industrial revolution is literally around the corner. Our today is coined as the AI revolution, characterized by the convergence of digital, physical, and biological tech, and its integration into the world as we know it. For many of us, it's hard to imagine the sheer possibilities that this fusion will bring. But it is easy to conclude that how business operates and how society functions will be dramatically transformed over the next few years. The fifth revolution is where collaboration between man and machine, cognitive computing, and mass customization and personalization will be a focus. Pace is rapid, and the challenge for leaders will be how to keep up and evolve to ensure that they and their organizations are truly fit for the future. But interestingly, pace is not the big news item here. The really significant point that I'd like you to consider is that many of us will struggle to find a past point of reference that we can use to imagine what the future workplace will look and feel like. Our leadership will no longer be built on a foundation of familiarity and expertise that we've gained in years gone by. Leaders will not only have to adapt their plans and their strategies to cope with this increasingly changing landscape, their own leadership skills, attributes, and approach need to adapt too. Now, 50 years ago, a control and command style of leadership was the norm. Leaders were encouraged to maintain a degree of distance and formality between them and their workforce to emphasize both professionalism and authority. Leaders who were decisive, authoritative, charismatic, confident to exert control and operate within hierarchical structures were the norm. Stability and predictability were highly valued in leaders. Skills which lent themselves to the consistent delivery of tasks in a well-defined organizational structure was valued. For many of us, productivity was often used to evaluate leadership effectiveness, and that was with little focus on softer skills such as emotional intelligence or staff well-being or employee satisfaction. Technical expertise was key in leadership recruitment decisions. You know, if an individual could demonstrate deep subject matter expertise, they would often rise up through the ranks in any given organization. Now, whilst I'm sat here talking about this style of leadership as being a thing of the past, I can remember very, very clearly that this is synonymous with how I developed as a leader in my early career. And I promise you, I am not that old. Learning, skill development, redefining my own leadership style are all front of mind for me right now. Not a nice to do, but a real necessity. The AI revolution diminishes geographical boundaries. In its application, it will reshape industries and organizations, and the impact is going to be felt everywhere. Interconnected ecosystems will exist where businesses will be able to collaborate, share data and resources to achieve common goals or solve the common problems. Leaders will need to think about helping their people engage with and navigate through this way of working. To cope with the rapid technological advancements, leaders themselves will need to become highly adaptive and flexible in their approach. They will need to be on top of emerging tech, trends, disruptions, and opportunities, fostering a culture of innovation and experimentation in their organizations. They themselves will need to adopt a global mindset, embrace the true art of systems thinking, and adopt collaborative leadership style to engage diverse teams and an even broader set of stakeholders. Risk management, critical thinking skills, and leading complex transformations are just a few of the essential skills that all leaders of the future will need to possess. Building resilience, lifelong learning, emotional intelligence, reflective practice, and adopting a sensible work-life balance will also be essential components of the future leadership toolkit for both personal and organizational well-being. Leaders who can evolve these qualities will be best equipped to navigate the future landscape. Now, the leadership transformation challenge is significant here, right? Gartner is predicting that generative AI will play a role in 70% of all text and data-heavy tasks by 2025. That's less than a year away. And a recent exec IBM study estimates that 41% of their workforce here in the UK, 41%, will need reskilling as a result of AI adoption in the next 5 years. This transformation challenge is big, and it's happening in the here and now. Promoting and actively sponsoring the advantages of AI and emergent tech will be critical to adoption in the workplace. Excuse me. Leaders will need to not only talk about tech knowledgeably, they will need to integrate the use of tech into their own working lives. Leaders are going to need to become tech savvy, digitally fluent. Teams will need to be encouraged to take ownership of their work and leverage AI tools and technologies. Encouraging innovation and creating a learning organizational culture where people can be courageous will become a critical success factor, and resilience will also be key. Now, I found it fascinating that in the Gartner 2023 hype cycle for emerging technologies report, and that's quite a mouthful, they assert that generative AI has already reached the peak of inflated expectation, and it will now enter this significant trough of disillusionment in the next 2 to 5 years, a time period where AI won't live up to its expectations because necessary conditions for success won't have been embedded in organizations. This alone is a significant leadership challenge. Leaders need to start preparing themselves to lead teams where man and machine work side by side. They will need to learn how to leverage the strength of both the human and machine intelligence working together. McKinsey notes in their recent Future World of Work report that executives need to shift their organizations towards agile, flexible, resilient workspaces that can work in a faster, federated, and data-driven way. Great leadership and associated critical success factors are being redefined. All leaders need to be mindful of the change. They need to salute the new suite of skills and attributes that will serve them well and be willing to acknowledge not only where they need to develop, but dedicate time and energy into plugging those gaps sooner rather than later. Now, lastly, I just want to talk about executive boards. Without doubt, the shape of executive boards will need to evolve too. We are already seeing a greater level of interaction and integration between the Chief People Officer and those holding the role of Chief Tech Officer, who, let's face it, have not necessarily been natural bedfellows in the past. With increasing focus on the ethical issues around emergent tech and corporate governance in organisations which, remember, will have very fluid boundaries, perhaps we will start to see roles such as the Chief Ethics Officer taking a seat at the top table. A Chief Learning Officer, Chief Resilience Officer, a Chief Wellbeing Officer are all equally as plausible. Skill building, talent spotting, development pathways and recruitment will all need to evolve to support these new positions and work in service of the organisation's inevitable evolution. Organisations that will not only survive but win need to start to consider the future shape of their SLT and their organisational target operating model in line with their thinking around the purpose and objectives of their workplace. They need to define the desired culture and start being intentional and purposeful in its pursuit through powerful future-focused leadership. So today, look, I've merely scratched the surface of the leadership paradigm shift we need to attend to. As I conclude this part of the presentation, I shall leave you with a question to consider. How much thought, space, time, and resources are you giving to leadership development and the planning needed to get your organisation fit for the future versus just managing in what are challenging conditions of today? Are you really prepared? Thank you for your time. I'm really happy to take questions at the end, but without further ado, I'm now going to hand over to Rob. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Really thought-provoking. And good morning, everyone. I think, as Jane has already started to allude to this morning, one of the key challenges that we all face with emergent technology is really knowing where to start during this, what will be the fifth industrial revolution. And traditionally, organisations tend to take one of two polar approaches, either to ignore it and wait until after that hype cycle is finished and we've been through that trough, or when they've got time to adapt to it, or organisations take the approach of ripping up their plans and strategies to chase after that next big thing in order to get ahead and keep that competitive advantage. The reality is neither approach is right or wrong per se, and neither approach will end in success on its own. And we saw this actually talked about in the orange paper that S&S published at the end of last year. In reality, all businesses operate within a budget cycle, and they're aligned to both business ambition and strategy, along with the trading position and risk outlook. So what does all this mean? Well, it means all of us in this room need to be creative in how we approach things and less formal in how we approach leadership. And Jane's just talked to that a bit. And actually, that's a challenge that many of us as CXOs in recent years have become rather adept to. We've seen ourselves move through a pandemic and just become that more agile and more nimble in recent years. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about how we navigate our way through this revolution and deliver quickly whilst learning as a business and a leadership team, because this transformational journey isn't going to feel like a big ERP program. It's going to be little pieces that we do along the way, which educate us and take us a step forward in terms of how we deliver the longer term capabilities within the business and understand, I guess, what that future target operating model needs to become. As leaders, we need to believe strongly that we are creative and we've got the ability to make a difference. And we need to think about our businesses and where those friction points are, both internally within the teams, but externally with customers and partners, whilst getting to grips with the power of this emergent technology. And actually, I'm really excited to talk about two real life examples today, where we're going to consider meaningful win-win differences that we're already starting to see come through with clients through levering AI, whilst driving the business forward and, importantly, providing leaders with that opportunity to learn and understand how to harness AI. So let's get going. So contact centres have become an essential part of what we do in businesses. Some are customer facing, other contact centres support our co-workers, our partners. Ultimately, this happened over the decades as a result of centralisation and redesign of organisations. And whilst cost was a driver, many of us will also remember it was important to strive towards more standardised ways of working. Instead of different parts of the country, different regions of the globe doing things differently, we were able to drive that standardisation. We followed that then with an outsourcing journey, often offshoring this, I guess we called it non-value add activity for our businesses. And then in most recent years, we've then seen the introduction of bots and robotic process automation. And each time we've been able to see a reduction in cost, and therefore we've seen it as an efficiency gain. Right, we've all been there. However, somewhere along that journey, we lost touch with the customer. Whether it's internal or end customer doesn't really matter, but we've lost touch in our drive to reduce that cost to serve. The first example I'm going to talk to is a real life hospitality case study that we're going to be ready to implement. Total time from start to finish is 6 to 8 weeks. We found AI has created a truly fascinating opportunity. Yes, we can absolutely use AI to automate our contact center journeys further and deliver those savings. And that's crucial in order to remain competitive. However, our opportunity with AI is wider than that. And it's one where we can start to look at how we improve that customer journey, not just leveraging generative AI to source information that customers need, but also coupling it with other technologies from OpenAI like Whisper that allow customers and guests to have a conversation in a more natural way. So that delivers an on-par experience with your best trained contact center teams. Great, that gives us consistency in the customer journey. It doesn't stop there though. The other thing it allows us to do is eradicate wait times. That's huge. That's not about saving money. That's about seeing additional revenue opportunity come through the business. So no more abandoned calls, no more friction for guests. We're now seeing and providing the opportunity to start to realise revenue that we were previously missing whilst driving forward guest satisfaction. This is truly a win-win. And the reality is, with this client, we're not needing to overhaul all our business processes. We're looking at where the friction points are and saying, how can we use AI to deliver a better outcome? We're going to be using AI to start handling reservations, customer queries about bookings, allergens, you name it. We're going to be able to start dealing with it. We won't be able to deal with everything, but we'll take away the bulk of it. The reality is it's a small team, so it's not going to be a huge labour saving, but we believe we're going to be capturing something in the region of 80 to 100% more calls. Those calls transform into revenue. That creates a win-win both for the customer, for the guest, and for the business. So that's a really good example of where we're able to deploy AI, generative AI, coupled with Whisper in a record quick time, 6 to 8 weeks from working through what we want to do, where the friction points are, through to delivering a measurable benefit. The other key benefit is the teams involved, the leaders involved are starting to learn more about the capability without needing to rip up the whole business strategy. So the second example I'm going to talk to is around marketing. And again, it's another real world example. CRM has very much become the staple of many marketing strategies for businesses over the last 30 years. And whether you're an established PLC servicing the needs of billions of customers globally, or you're a startup business just starting your journey in a local community, CRM is the way you stay connected. It's how you tell people about what you're doing. And in recent years, tech capability in CRM has stepped on. Through the advent of big data, being able to bring things together, we're now better to able to understand people's habits and behaviours and understand what they're likely to engage into. We're able to understand what they like on social and share that then through back into what we do and how we market to customers. We have become more sophisticated. We can now identify through CRM where a customer's behaviour is starting to change, where they're lapsing or where they're late, and we can do something about that to try and bring that guest or that customer back in. And within our businesses, we set up teams of experts who can create beautiful emails, in-app notifications, and know how to harness this data in order to drive outcomes for customers to click and buy. Now, let's spend 30 seconds just reimagining how AI is going to change that. When we think about the data and the analytics, we can now start understanding more about customers' buying habits and trends. In hospitality, we're really thinking about what customers are likely to buy, not just what they're going to buy, but when. When becomes very important because that tells you about when you market to people. Instead of blanket emailing people every week or every month, if I know you've got something coming up shortly, I can start talking to you about it and I can make it really relevant to you based on what I think you're going to be into. The other piece I can then start using is generative AI to start personalizing that information. So not only am I going to send you something that is tailored when you need it, I can start personalizing this message. So it's in your tone of voice, it resonates with you, and it's thinking about where you are, your lifestyle cues that we see coming in from social and other data sources. So I'm now optimizing when I send you something and what I talk about. And the third part is I can be there to support you through that buying journey in a way that I've never previously been able to do through the use of AI through bots to actually be able to deliver that conversion. If I want to know more before I click through to book or click through to buy, I can handle that in real time 24/7. These are two very simple case studies that we are implementing into hospitality at the moment that are true win-win examples of how we believe AI will drive not only the business forward, but also the customer experience forward. Christoph, this feels like a great time for us to think about human-centric change. I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Rob. Hello, everybody. As Rob was saying, kind of with the technology view, now kind of I'm trying to balance that with a human element to that, to create a little bit of a change maybe in thinking about humans in that. So I think humans have an important role to play in the implementation of generative AI or AI in general. And as you heard from Jane, kind of through two kind of particular statistics that kind of stuck in my head. One, about 41% of IBM people need to be reskilled, but also 70% of tech roles have an impact based on generative or general AI. So it's undisputable there will be an impact on our colleagues and employees in organizations. And what I want to get through the next kind of few minutes is and drive home probably kind of three key messages. One, it's not one or the other. I think we need to look at the implementations and the impact of generative AI on humans in a more nuanced way. Secondly, we still need humans. Humans are important, and it's absolutely key that we look after our colleagues and employees. And secondly, we need better humans, not better machines. So it creates focus on helping our colleagues through the journey and getting the best out of technology by better humans. But let me explore that in the next kind of few minutes. Firstly, about when you look at the impact of technology in the past, it was more about we had a business process, we automated it, and everybody knew what they needed to do. So that was that automate aspect as you see on the slide. I think now with generative AI, we moved up that journey kind of to the augmentation. And in that augmentation, technology enhances what we do with technology as humans in very different ways than it ever did before. And therefore, I draw it as a continuum. Kind of there is either pure human, there is a combination of augmentation or automation, but then there's definitely elements of pure machines. And I think my message here is when we look at the role of the person in that technology change, never forget it's not one or the other. Kind of we make sure that we have a more nuanced view of it. And to express that, I have at the bottom selected kind of one way of explaining technology has different roles to play. From a tool that you might be using in your Outlook when it does your spell checking, over an assistant that like Siri on your iPhone, or a collaborator where people use augmented glasses in distribution environments, for example. Our coaches, especially in learning environments, helping us to learn a language, for example. or mediator, when imagine kind of an operation is done completely remotely by your consultant, integrated with real-time diagnostics. So it is everything in between, from the tool to the mediator, and important to know that what we do with it and how we help people in their journey is really depending on which role is which part playing. So it's absolutely key that we understand that. And that's why I call it a partnership. In the past, it might have been technology enables a human. I think now and in the future, especially with generative AI, it becomes something where it is more a partnership. But does that mean we are just prompt engineers? No, I don't think so. To explore the role a little bit more on the aspects of it, we are looking at next slide, please. We are looking at two kind of or three aspects. One is about creativity. Emma, can you please move to the next slide? Thank you. Thank you. The humans kind of in those roles have different roles to play, and I've selected three aspects of where that could be: creativity, intelligence, and empathy. On the creativity side, I think generative AI particularly becomes an enabler and enhances what we're doing. It's not terminating our creativity. I think it is a combination that makes it better. It will also help us to express our creativity differently and better. That's why I called it inclusivity. If you would ask me to paint a picture, you get basically a stick figure. But me using kind of the DALL-E generative AI, I become a small Picasso. I still can't spell properly, as you can see in my picture, but that is what AI does. So I think creativity can be enhanced to that. It will help us to grow as individuals and learning new skills and learning different skills, but also as kind of Rob mentioned in the example of customization of messaging, the personalization of, for example, how you learn and what you learn becomes a lot more specific to what you need as a person and an employee than just kind of what everybody else needs in the classroom. So I think there's an important part to play by generative AI, and that will change the role of the human in that whole creative kind of space. Intelligence, again, kind of linking it back kind of to what Rob mentioned initially, automating of mundane tasks that helps us to focus our expertise as humans on the task that we can really create value, and that is also not only creating value for the organization, but also hopefully creating value for the employee themselves. It's more fulfilling, it's more purposeful, and it's more meaningful to them. That means when we implement those technologies, we will need slightly different skills. For example, if you work in technology and you're kind of a software coder, you might be using generative AI tools to help you deliver better code, deliver faster code. When you are in other areas that is using the first time generative AI, you might completely new skills might be required, like prompt engineering. I think it's important for us as leaders in organization that we appreciate that change of reskilling or new skills is a continuous process. It's not going to kind of finish. It's something that we continuously need to do, and we continuously need to be on top of. And there are different examples why that is the case. Lastly, learning will be helped by generative AI because we can do it more specifically, more helpful for us. But equally, there might be new roles in there in the learning process. AIs can go through learning cycles way faster than we ever can. The cognitive capacity is just limited on our side. But we still need humans to help machines to learn in a good way, especially when we create that feedback. Again, that doesn't mean replacing people. People have still a key role to play. And lastly, empathy, an important part to mention, and also links back to what Jane was mentioning about resilience, particularly. We can use generative AI to help us through that journey of adapting technology and adopting it, and also can help us to absorb the change easier. So there are tools out there and technologies that help us for mental well-being, help us in exercises. I've used it even myself, using kind of generative AI and for mindfulness and meditation. It's not something you would naturally go to, but if you're inclined to do so, it can be really, really helpful. The beginning part, or up to now, was very positive in the sense of positive impacts. And as you can hear, I'm a big believer in it. But equally, we should not forget there will be negative impacts too. People will lose their jobs. There will be redundancies based on those technologies. And I think we as leaders have a duty to make sure that that change is as ethical and as sustainable as it can be done. And we support the people through that process, because we should not forget those will have lost or changed their purpose, their economic capability, and we need to help them through that journey to adopt to that new change and get the best out of it. So all of those opportunities come with responsibilities, but I think the role of the human in the adoption of especially generative AI is not just about harnessing the technology and the power of technology. It's about harnessing the power and expertise of the humans in creativity, intelligence, and through empathy. That means we need better humans and not better machines. It's about creating a future where technology and humans coexist and thrive together. Thank you.
Thanks, Christoph. So my section, I'm going to talk a little bit about the way we transform. I am focused very much on the shift of methodology, the thinking, and the way that we do things. So traditional transformation programs have always focused around 4 key aspects for me. So people, process, technology, and data. To deliver quantified business outcomes, that's what I always do, benefits realization. Generative AI involves the same aspects, but in a different combination. We're very much focused on data-driven outcomes and data to drive a set of outputs that we're looking for our businesses. The world of transformation is undergoing a revolution. So whereas traditionally we would look for programs to focus on optimizing existing practice or implementing new technologies, we now know that that's no longer enough. AI has the ability to learn, adapt, and automate tasks. Complete overhaul of this requires a complete overhaul of our approach to transformation. So we're really taking a shift from tweaks to reimagination. We're looking at how we streamline current workflows with a better set of tools that allows us to help our humans deliver better outcomes for our businesses. So I'm going to go on now and focus on some of the changes that we're going to see in how we transform. I'm going to focus on the shift from traditional delivery methods such as waterfall and agile onto how we're going to do this within the AI world. Next slide, please. So traditional deployments involved traditional approaches. We're all familiar with waterfall and agile. Approaches that look at a step of activities from requirements, design, development, testing, deployment, and maintenance to iterative design within the agile world. AI forces us to change. It forces us to think differently. And there's some aspects that we need to think about as we go into this journey. The first one is iterative and incremental development. Traditional waterfall approaches were linear. As I said, there's a sequential approach with distinct phases, requirements gathering, design, implementation, and testing and maintenance. Agile looked at focusing on iterative and incremental developments with sprints or iterations that produce a potentially shippable product with increments. AI deployment requires continuous iteration and refinement due to the experimental nature of the AI models. This involves frequent training, evaluation, and deployment cycles to improve performance based on new data and feedback. Data-centric approaches. Traditional waterfall methods emphasize detailed upfront planning and requirement specification. Agile adapts to changing requirements and focusing on delivering working software increments. AI deployment prioritizes data collection, pre-processing, and management. The quality and quantity of data are critical to the success of AI models. Continuous integration and validation are essential. Model training and validation. Traditional waterfall testing is a distinct phase of the implementation. Agile testing is integrated into each iteration, and continuous feedback is needed to make sure that what we developed is online with what we planned. AI requires a different approach. Model training and validation are ongoing processes. Models need to be retrained, and new data and their performance must be continually monitored and validated to ensure they meet the desired needs. Continuous integration and continuous deployment. Traditional waterfall deployment occurs once after the entire system is built and tested. We're all used to this, and it makes us comfortable to know that we've designed something, we've understood what it's going to look like, and we can test that it looks like what we thought. Agile deployments can happen at the end of each sprint, so we know in the small increments that we're trying to improve, we can see the changes that we desire. AI requires robust, continuous integration and deployment pipelines tailored for AI, including steps for data processing, model training, validation, and deployment. These pipelines need to handle frequent updates and ensure new models are seamlessly integrated into production. The traditional go-live model that we're used to is potentially dead. Experimenting with A and B testing. Traditional waterfall changes are implemented based on predetermined requirements with limited scope for experimentation. Agile allows for some degree of experimentation with iterations, and we're used to this in the world of software as a service. AI deployment, however, heavily relies on experimentation and A/B testing to compare different model versions and configurations. Continuous experimentation helps us to optimize models and understand their impact on business metrics. Monitoring and maintenance. Traditional waterfall, as we all know, maintenance is a post-deployment activity, fixing issues and updating the system for security or whatever we need to see. Agile includes regular updates and bug fixes. We know that from the SaaS world of today. AI deployments, however, involve continuous monitoring of the model performance in production to detect issues like model drift, data drift, degradation in accuracy. Automated alerts and feedback loops are critical for maintaining model efficiency, efficacy over time. Excuse me, I need some water. So let's go on to the human aspects of delivering these programs. Cross-disciplinary collaboration. Collaboration is often sequential in the world of traditional waterfall, with each team, requirements, design, development, testing, having a handoff relationship with each other, working in isolation. Agile promotes cross-functional teams working collaboratively through iterations. AI deployments require tight collaboration between data scientists, data engineers, machine learning engineers, and domain experts. Effective communication and collaboration are crucial for aligning models output with business objectives and ensuring successful deployments. And I want to echo ethics and bias considerations. So we've talked about lots of other things and how we deploy systems. And ethics was never really a part of the traditional waterfall or agile system, because it was not being asked the question of designing and delivering an output. It was asked the question of how do you monitor and maintain a process. So AI deployments necessitate a proactive approach to address ethical concerns and bias in AI models. This includes implementing fairness, accountability, transparency measures throughout the development and deployment process. AI deployment methods are characterized by their emphasis on iterative development, data-centric processes, continuous model evaluation, and the need for robust CI and CD pipelines. They also demand ongoing monitoring, cross-disciplinary collaboration, and strong focus on ethical considerations, differentiating them from traditional waterfall and agile approaches. So in summary, it's incumbent upon us as leaders to think about the impact of generative AI and the opportunity it presents, but also the skills, capabilities, mindset needed to successfully implement generative AI. It's clear to me that generative AI, if I can put the teeth back in, generative AI will fundamentally change the nature of change and transformation for the future. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Neil.
Thanks, Ravi, and hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about AI specifically in relation to customer and colleague happiness. I don't know about you, but it feels to me that customer experience has been neglected in recent years, particularly since COVID. Personally, I brace myself if I need to interact with an organization or anything that is non-standard, because experience has taught me to have very low expectations. Everything seems to be geared to a standard process and a standard customer. And if you need us outside of that, quite a lot in my case, it feels like, you experience very long waiting times, useless chatbots, agents who struggle to understand what you're even talking about, and websites that seem to have every option imaginable except the one that you need. And busy customers don't have any time for that. So I believe that harnessing the power of AI to drive better experience will be a real competitive differentiator. There are many examples of tools using AI to enhance customer experience and which have the potential to develop further with generative AI. There's personalized recommendations like Amazon's. Chatbots and virtual assistants have tended to be clunky and limited in the past, but powered by generative AI, managed in the right way, they have the potential to transform customer experience. For example, proactively popping up and asking if they can help you while you are browsing, just like a person might have done in an actual store. Voice assistants like Siri and Alexa will become more sophisticated with generative AI and able to process more complex queries. Imagine a clothing retailer website you could talk to. Have you got something that's a bit like that, but without buttons and off-white? Predictive customer service. Starbucks uses a tool called Deep Brew. I just love that. I couldn't believe that when I found that. Deep Brew. It uses machine learning and predictive analytics to personalize marketing messages and even manage store-level inventory. Taking a step further, AI can also anticipate future customer needs by looking at a combination of customer, economic, and trend data. It can provide sentiment analysis from reviews, so analyzing the sentiment underneath the words to surface valuable feedback, which can help organizations focus on continually improving the customer experience. There are wider uses also. So, for example, making suggestions on continually improving how customer experience is delivered by analyzing a broad range of data from buying patterns, interactions, outcomes across different channels. It can look at where you are asking for the same information twice, simplifying the number of clicks, picking up on dropout rates, and unresolved queries. But the real potential of AI and the real competitive differentiator is to help us better engage as humans. We've already heard from Rob how AI can practically support better customer interactions, reducing or even stopping dropped calls in contact centers, managing emails, better answering queries digitally in real time. AI can also automate our manual background processes like CRM, bringing us up to focus more on higher value activities in the customer interaction itself. One example being developed in the healthcare sector is AI listening to the conversation, producing the notes, producing necessary documentation like letters and prescriptions. This enables medical staff to focus entirely on the patient. Ultimately, the real power of AI is acting as a guide for humans to focus more on the customer experience itself. Organizations that realize this will win. Emma, can I have the next slide, please? However, the key lever for delivering a better customer experience is creating a better colleague experience. A recent survey carried out by Sapio Research found that 92% of employees say they waste up to 8 hours a week searching documents for information they need to serve customers. That's a whole day lost in emails, PDFs, Excel sheets, and other digital documents. You can use AI to automate repetitive, mundane tasks, free up employees to focus on more meaningful and fulfilling work. For example, there's a UK company, Costain, which automated its manual invoicing process of 400,000 invoices, saving 9 minutes per invoice and reducing employee and customer pain points in the process. When employees can focus on higher value and positive impact tasks, a sense of pride and purpose develops that shine through to the customer. And implementing such tools to empower your workforce sets a positive tone all round. There's also a really important point about the impact of AI. Just building on some of the stats that Jane was referring to earlier, there's a Forum Future of Jobs report which predicted by 2025, only next year, 85 million jobs may be displaced by machines. But it also predicted that 97 million new roles may emerge that are more adapted to the new division of labour between humans, machines, and algorithms. This is my sense. People are concerned about the impact of AI on jobs. I think the focus should be the scale of change involved and the new skills that are required to adopt the new technology. So there's a huge reskilling challenge necessary to fully harness the potential of AI. As a CIO recently said to me when he was approached by people in the marketing department concerned that AI will take their jobs, his response was, no, AI won't take your jobs. Marketing people that know how to use AI will take your jobs. So there's a really important point here that your people need to be invested in, supported, and reskilled to fully harness the potential of new tech. So you've heard quite a lot today. You've heard that leadership styles will need to radically change. New tech has the potential to make customer interactions better. The interface between humans and tech is changing. There is a huge reskilling challenge, and AI can help with the process of change itself. In short, the key to harnessing the power of this new tech is investing in your people. To quote Christoph, it's better humans. Done right and grasped proactively, it's a world of opportunity. Thank you. So I believe I'm now handing back to JP to field questions.
Just as the lights in the room I'm in switch off in perfect harmony. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions there. I'm very mindful that we are indeed running slightly over time. I don't know how many of you have got time to hang on. We have. So if anyone would like to field any questions into the chat, please feel free to do so, and we'll start working through responding to them. So to some extent, I think this is a pick and go, guys. Which ones do you want to take? We've got 2 up so far. Interesting to know where the AI compliance function resides, if it's going to reside in orgs. My travel so far, it seems to live under data governance. These functions are mostly woefully unprepared to create policies or apply controls in a way that enables development at scale. Anything anyone on the panel wants to take?
I'm happy to have a go. In my experience, and I'm supervising a PhD kind of in that particular space kind of myself, and successful AI compliance has to be part of your existing compliance efforts. Otherwise, it will become something that is very burdensome. And as you say, some of the functions will not be equipped to do that. So if you put it into data governance, that only covers one part of the system. As kind of Rob, Ravi, and also kind of Jane mentioned, kind of when you look at the system, all the parts need to interplay of the people, the process, technology, and the data. If we only kind of manage data for its compliance, yes, it's an important part of AI, but I think it's pushing it not far enough. So it needs to be embedded. I've seen instances in large organizations, especially banking, where they put it into the central compliance function. It's part of their compliance efforts, and they don't make a big difference if it's AI or technology. It is part of what they do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christoph. I think we've got time for one more. I think question from Chris is interesting. So how ready do people actually feel our organizations are from a data quality and governance perspective? We know getting that right is absolutely imperative from a foundational point of view to harness the power of AI. Would any of the panel like to grab hold of that one, or indeed swerve it and pick another question?
No, I think that's an interesting one. So I've certainly had a few discussions around data quality and governance, and there is a real nervousness. I mean, even to this point, we've heard some horror stories of internal data being exposed externally, all sorts of challenges going on. So I think it's something people really need to think about. And myself and Christoph are having a discussion about whether you have an internal AI or an external AI and what that means for how you deploy. And I think this is a changing landscape. And I think over the next few years, we're going to see people starting to understand the power of AI and then starting to make decisions about how they want to deploy it based on what it's learning from, the data it's consuming, and how it's responding. I think this is an evolving journey, and it's one that I tried to talk to in my piece.
Thank
I
you,
think
Ravi.
to build on that, Ravi, I think the other point I'd say is it's not even always your internal data.
Yeah.
You know, as more and more happens with generative AI, your business's footprint, its brand, what it does, the products it's offer, are being consumed by customers in a way you never realised would happen. So stuff that's on third-party websites is now being presented back up to your consumer. So to build on what Ravi said, I would look beyond the four walls of your organisation and think about where's data that relates to your products sat in the wider sort of hemisphere. It's a real challenge facing all of us.
Okay, well, the clock has struck 12. One thing we have got on here is, can anyone suggest any courses or training in AI?
I've
one
got a couple of
maybe
links
think I can follow up on.
Yeah, I've got a couple of links I can share after the session. I'll send them over to you, JP, and you can send them out.
Thanks, Ravi. And an interesting point on future government policies on AI. We know we've had the summit at the back end of last year, trying to look at things very much from a safety angle. I don't know how much that might constrain innovation when you think of other nations, in particular the US and China, striding forward with less regulation. But has anyone got an opinion on government policy around AI and how that might constrain or accelerate investment?
It's an interesting one.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I can make maybe a general point. Kind of when you look at how governments across the world, and especially in large organizations at international, you have to be aware of how those policies get implemented on a global scale. There are two key approaches. Kind of one that the UK is taking is based on principles. So it's regulating basically of how you should be doing it based on the principles. If you take the more traditional kind of European approach, that is about policies. So it's kind of saying what you can't do and what you can do. I think the approach was, my personal opinion, the principal approach, looking at outcomes and being less restrictive, will be the successful one. And because an organization or a government will never be able to keep on track with the developments that are going on technology-wise, but also otherwise, to make sure that you're keeping on top of all the regulations. So based on principles, that's the best way to do. And I think that creates also an element of opportunity and innovativeness kind of for organizations. Use the space where it's not regulated. Obviously do that always in an ethical and kind of fair way. But equally, I think there's an opportunity in there until kind of we figured out all regulation, which probably will never happen. But there is an opportunity in using the white spaces for the opportunity to create opportunity for the organization and value for your customers and employees.
Thank you, Christoph. And one to close, and one for you, Jane. I think Ricky had posted this. What's the biggest challenge leaders are coming to you with getting started around AI?
I think that is the biggest challenge, that they don't know where to get started. And what I'm spending a lot of time with is talking with boards around how are they preparing themselves. The tech is coming through, but it's like, how are they going to enable their organization to know what's out there? Because, you know, there's so much innovation happening, and where is the best user case for them? But how are they preparing the organization? How are they starting to talk about a narrative around this? I mean, most of the exec boards I'm working with at the moment still haven't got a sense of how they're truly going to understand their work, position their workspace. What's the workplace for anymore? How are they going to reuse the workplace in order to create space to have the creativity, to engage their colleagues in a different way, to bring people together, to have agile problem solving sessions and get creative? So there's some real fundamentals that I think exec boards need to start having a view on, and start having a narrative around. And also they need to prepare themselves. You know, how am I going to need to adapt? And what we would ask, and what I encourage, is that they create a narrative around their vulnerability, the shift that they've got to make, the changes that they're anticipating, because they need to bring themselves very much into the journey, so colleagues can feel that they understand the impact and they can trust, and it's not just about them as colleagues, it's the leaders that need to adapt as well. So I think there's things they need to attend to, but I think attending to that whilst dealing with challenges of today and getting some of those really basic foundation stones set, I think that's where I'd ask leaders to put their shoulders to the wheel at the minute. I think they need to lean into some of that better. Yeah.
Thank you, Jane. Well, look, we'll wrap it up there. We're 5 minutes past the hour. Thank you ever so much to the Transformation Advisory Board for your efforts. Thank you for everyone for their contribution. We'll follow up with a paper on the conversation and a polls. Would love it if you would take part in that, so we can collect some more data, which we'll share back with you all. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week, and we'll look forward to speaking to you and see you all soon. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Bye.